Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Mark Graban from KaiNexus, a senior advisor with the company. We're joined today by
Greg Jacobson. I'm the CEO and co-founder, and I'm really excited, Mark.
Okay, yeah, we haven't done an Ask Us Anything in a while. This is going to be episode 29. Let me give some of the details first here. Ask Us Anything with Greg and myself. December 14th, 1 o'clock Eastern for an hour, maybe a little bit less. But when we've done these before, people can literally ask us anything. You can submit questions in advance. If you register, go to kainexus.com/webinars or look for a link in the show notes. But in the past year and a half, we did, especially last year, we did a bunch of Ask Us Anythings that were really kind of focused on COVID with Greg and other physicians.
Yeah, those were fun. It was interesting to see different companies kind of pitching a hand in where they could in obviously the unprecedented pandemic that we went through or that we are going through.
Right.
And what that ultimately turned into, as you know, Mark, was the blog, Letters to Humans. And it's been pretty cool. I haven't been needing to write as much, but I've had some requests to write about the new variant and kind of my thoughts on that. But I think we kind of stopped that, and then Ask Us Anything's just came out of focus, but I'm so glad you put it back in focus.
Yeah, so looking forward to it. And again, people can submit questions in advance. If you attend live, you can submit questions through the Zoom Q&A. I mean, popular topics, things that people ask us about include continuous improvement, KaiNexus software, about leadership, about entrepreneurship. Greg is a co-founder and a CEO, more than 10 years into this KaiNexus journey. You can ask questions about COVID. You can ask us questions about sports or our plans for the holidays, or that's why it's called Ask Us Anything, right, Greg?
We should probably qualify that I'm an ER doctor, so that's why the COVID questions are appropriate. I'll speak from the literature that I'm reading in the podcast, the science podcast that I keep up with, and we should probably also mention on the sports thing, if it's not about the Spurs, it may be more one-sided. I know, Mark, you keep up with a lot more sports than I do, but mostly just a Spurs fan. So
we probably won't get questions about sports.
Yeah, but, we probably won't.
So you can ask us anything. We may decline to answer. But it doesn't say we'll answer anything. You can certainly ask. We are open to questions and conversation and discussion. It's going to be a pretty loose format. We'll have the video on. There's going to be no slides. We'll just take the questions as they come in. And we try to keep it casual and kind of fun and kind of lighthearted going into the holidays. Like one question people might want to ask Greg is, how do you juggle dual duties of being CEO of KaiNexus full-time and still working a little bit as a practicing ER doc?
It's definitely a struggle, but mostly wicked time management and constantly checking in with my wife and daughter, making sure that I'm not neglecting different areas. But ultimately, KaiNexus has been great to allow me to do some of that ER work. I mean, you remember, Mark, back in the early days, I was doing that all on the weekends, and it was clearly a recipe for burnout and disaster. And I've managed to come up with a schedule where I get some kind of classic business work days to do my ER work. And it's also a low volume ER, but it's constantly refining and reconsidering and doing PDSA cycles. So.
Yep. As many of our customers and people in our audience are also doing themselves. So again, you can ask all sorts of questions. Greg, as a doctor, an entrepreneur, a CEO, somebody who's been steeped for the longest time in Kaizen, not just theory, but practice. You can ask us questions about trying to build a culture of continuous improvement within KaiNexus, and we can certainly share examples and things that we know about going on in other organizations. I'm happy to address questions about Lean or Kaizen or...
I was going to say, we are a blogger, well into your second decade, a speaker, a author, a consultant, and an advisor at KaiNexus. So you have a busy schedule to juggle as well, Mark.
Yeah, well, I try to, I try to manage my time the best I can. I don't think I've really ever reached a point of burnout, thankfully, but I'm fortunate. I get to juggle a lot of different things and things that are generally really, really interesting to me. So it's that cliche about, find work that you enjoy and it doesn't feel like work.
Yep. I
mean, there are days when it does, but that's the reality of life. So.
Also, questions about what books we're reading, podcasts you like, whiskeys that you like to drink, Mark. It's always a good topic.
Greg is a voracious reader and podcast listener. You listen to podcasts on what X speed?
Typically 2X. Although I should say I use the Overcast, the Smart Speed, so it does some manipulating to allow you to go faster. I don't listen to everything at 2X. It really has to do with the topic and how depth and complex the topic is, because I do find myself slowing down when there's complex concepts that I'm really trying to get. But if you're just trying to kind of get a cursory feel for it, 2X is pretty easy to work yourself up to. So
it sounds like we're for this Ask Us Anything, the odd couple, where Greg is the doctor and the scholar, and I sit around drinking whiskey. not at 2X speed or 2X volumes beyond what would be appropriate, I think.
Well, I mean, it's fair to know that. I mean, you know your whiskey. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I do. I like learning about it. I did get certified earlier this year, a certification from a group called the WSET, the Wine and Spirits Education Trust. So I am I may not have shared that with you, Greg. I'm a level 2 certified, certifies some level of knowledge about whiskey and other spirits. So it's just a little fun project to just challenge myself of going and learning something. And I'm not trying to use that certification professionally, but it was fun to do.
That's cool.
Always keep learning, right?
Always keep learning, and I'm super interested to see what questions are there today. I mean, if you remember when we started this, you said, let's run an experiment and see what happens. And we had questions that we didn't get to in the first episode. And then we did a second episode, and we still have questions from, I guess it would be episode 28 that we just.
Yeah, we do have a little catalog. A lot of these questions are pretty timeless, so we'll dip in the questions we haven't gotten to yet. But I'll ask Greg to tell the story, because Greg shares a lot with the KaiNexus team of what he reads and listens to. Was this Seth Godin in his podcast framed a more effective way of asking for questions?
Yes,
Can you tell us that story?
Instead of him in the last Akimbo podcast that I listened to earlier this week, he usually says, something to the effect of, I love getting your questions and answering them. Here's the link to do that. And he decided to switch it up and say, I really need your questions. So please submit them here, and mention that it increased the number of questions because his number had gotten down. He says he doesn't like to have too many because he does want to get to them in some kind of timely, but he wants to have some. And so I guess Mark and I would say we need your questions. So please submit them to us. It provides a much more interesting and dynamic conversation.
Yeah, because if you don't ask us anything, we can't do and ask us anything. So we do need your questions. Again, go to kainexus.com/webinars. Look for the webinar registration link. And then when you fill that out, there'll be a different form that comes up prompting you to enter a question or questions. Or you can find a more specific registration link in the show notes in the podcast or on YouTube if you're watching us instead of listening. So again, December 14th, it's a Tuesday, 1:00 Eastern. With me and Greg. So looking forward to it.
Thanks, Mark. See you next week.
All right.